formal introductions. For those who don't know me, I'm Karen Dion. I write psychological suspense that's set in Michigan's Upper Peninsula wilderness, where I lived for a lot of years. My two big books in that vein are The Marsh King's Daughter and The Wicked Sister. Thank you. They were both internationally published, and The Marsh King's Daughter in particular was crazy well received, which was really gratifying, for an author 20 years into their career to have that happen. And The Marsh King's Daughter is also, for those of you who don't know, soon to be released as a major motion picture starring Daisy Ridley and Ben Mendelsohn. I know, crazy, right? Now, our authors, I'll do this alphabetically. Alma Katsu is the award-winning author of 7 novels. The latest is The Fervor, which is a reimagining of the Japanese internment that book lists called a stunning triumph, and library journals called it a must-read for all, not just genre fans. Red Widow was her first espionage novel, and it was a nominee for the Thriller Writers Award for Best Novel, yay, and a New York Times Editor's Choice, and is in development for a TV series. Alma used to live in Washington, D.C., but now she lives in the mountains of West Virginia with her musician husband, Bruce, and their 2 dogs, Nick and Ash. Chris has a cat.
Yes. This is Dashel, by the way.
All right.
He's a bit of a ham. He loves it when I'm on Zoom.
That's very cute. Well, pets are welcome. Chris is the author of the cross-genre collector trilogy, which recasts the battle between heaven and hell as old-fashioned crime pulp. Doesn't that sound cool? He's also the author of the Michael Hendricks thrillers, which feature a hitman who only kills other hitmen. 30-odd short stories that run the gamut from crime to horror to science fiction, and the standalone Child Zero, which is a scientific thriller in the vein of Michael Crichton. Yeah, that's the new one. And, if there's a quote here, if you like thrillers that really thrill and with a bit of Michael Crichton vibe, you're going to enjoy this to the max. In the last 70 pages, the twists go off like a string of firecrackers. So says Stephen King.
Wow.
Yeah, that's awesome. So fantastic. He's also a former molecular biologist with a U.S. patent to his name. So we're going to have to ask him about that in breakout rooms. Bianca Marais is the author of the beloved Holm, if you don't know the words, and If You Want to Make God Laugh, as well as the Audible original, The Prime Viper. Did I say that right? Prin?
Viper, yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
No problem.
Bianca taught at the University of Toronto's School of Continuing Studies, where she was awarded an Excellence in Teaching Award for creative writing in 2021. She runs the you're going to have to say the name for me.
Ngogodo.
Okay. Initiative to empower young Black women in Africa to write and publish their own stories, and fundraises to assist grandmothers in Soweto for caring for children who have been orphaned by HIV/AIDS. She's the co-producer of the popular podcast, and you're going to make me swear, which I don't normally do, The Shit Someone Tells You About Writing. That's the name of Bianca's podcast, and it's fantastic. I was a part of it once, and the episodes are just wonderful. So Bianca is doing a lot of stuff to help emerging writers get published, both in Canada and in Africa. The Witches of Moonshine Manor is her 3rd novel, which is a complete genre change for her. And it publishes August 23rd. That's Tuesday. Yay. Congrats. It's exciting, right? Thank you. There it is. There it is. And in her unofficial bio, she says she was also once bitten by a giraffe. So we'll have to ask her about that in the breakout room as well. So this part of the program next, we ask the authors a few questions to help you get to know them. They're really simple questions. They're on official backroom cards, all printed out and everything. So I'm going to ask the questions in the order that I see the authors on the screen, which makes you first, Alma. You get the hardest question of the night. Is your desk messy or tidy?
It's gotten more tidy over the years. I wonder what that says about me.
I'm not sure because, there are studies that say a messy desk is a sign of a creative mind. So, we're not quite sure why you're getting tidy, but
yeah. Hopefully I'm still creative.
let's hope so. I don't think there's any doubt of that. Not at all. Okay. Bianca, where do you write?
Right, everywhere before COVID, and then our world shrank. And now it's pretty much just in our tiny shoebox apartment in downtown Toronto. And because it's so little and my husband works from home, I say that I have to listen to BS Bingo all day, every day, because he works in banking. And I hear him on his meetings. So I work where I can blast white noise and put earplugs in at the moment.
We do what we have to do, right? Yeah.
Don't let him hear you say that a dirty or a messy desk is a sign of a creative mind, because he has zero creativity and his desk is an absolute mess. And it happens to be my dining room table at the moment. So don't encourage him.
I think that's a familiar story for during COVID. Everything retreated into our homes. Chris, you get a hard question too. What's your favorite snack?
Oh gosh, my favorite snack. Well, so my wife and I have a habit of keeping freezer cookies on hand at all times, like chocolate chip cookies, homemade, straight from the freezer, good any time of year. We always joke that the best thing about freezer cookies is there are always cookies. And the worst thing about freezer cookies is that there are always cookies. So that's probably what I would go with.
Cookies. Yeah, sounds nice. Not a bad plan either. Alma, when do you feel the most creative?
Lately, I've been writing first thing in the morning, which sometimes is 6 o'clock. I get up, make a cup of coffee, and try to just jump into work.
Yeah. And do you take up from the day before? Are you writing like a first draft and you just plow forward, or are you editing? What are you doing at that early, ungodly hour?
I know. Whatever I'm doing, I do tend to sort of go right back into what I was doing the day before, but also, as we all know, right, like get the social media started in the morning and check the calendar and all that throat clearing stuff you have to do before you start writing.
Yeah, I like that description. Yeah. Bianca, what was the title of the first thing you ever wrote?
Ooh, I stole a story from Enid Blyton when I was 7 about magical creatures in a tree. And instead of calling it the magic faraway tree, I think I just called it the magical tree. So, hopefully my titles have gotten better since then, Karen.
Was it a school assignment? Did your teacher recognize that you stole it?
Oh, so it wasn't an assignment. I just wrote this book and I illustrated it. And then I gave it to my teacher to read. And she didn't quite understand what I wanted. And so she marked the whole thing up in red ink, correcting my spelling and everything. But it was a good lesson early on that everyone's a critic.
I like it. And Chris, what was your favorite book as a child?
Oh gosh, my favorite book as a child. I had this Penguin condensed classics for kids of Edgar Allan Poe's short stories, and that just blew my mind when I was little. I mean, The Telltale Heart, The Cask of Amontillado, and I don't know if I was a morbid kid and that's why I liked it, or if stumbling across it at an early age made me a morbid kid, but that was there's some interplay there. And I have to say, I just want to jump back to the last question for a second, because my first ever story was called The Alien Death from Outer Space, and I am convinced that my titles have only gotten worse since.
That's great. I love it. Well, this is fun. And I always love getting to know you authors better this way and ask some of these sneaky little questions. I hope the audience enjoyed it too. Now, the authors have prepared a book recommendation, because Hank and my objective is to make sure you never run out of books to read. And of course, we hope that you will purchase and read these authors' wonderful books, but also the books that they're recommending. So Alma, we'll start with you. What book have you read that you think everybody should read?
The Pallbearers Club by Paul Tremblay. It just came out a couple weeks ago, maybe. I picked this for a couple reasons. One is, I'm considered a horror writer, but my books could not be more different from Paul's books, and our books could not be more different from a lot of other horror writers' books. What I'm trying to say is horror writing is a big tent. So Paul's books are all very well, one thing is they're great horror novels because they're kind of so personal, right? Like they're kind of existential in a way. What I find horrible about life is life, but it's kind of personal. And in order to really be terrified, it has to be something that's really important to you as an individual. And we all have that, right? But Paul always captures that in his books. And his latest one is maybe his best one. And I just love it. And it's a little hard to describe. I mean, the log line is not log line, but the quick blurb is it's about a shy, kind of introspective loner boy who has no friends. And so he ends up going to a funeral home and attending the funeral services of homeless people who have no one else to be there. And he meets this fascinating, bizarre young woman, and they form this really strange friendship. And after a while, he starts to realize that she might be a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a great book, and I really encourage you to check it out.
Awesome. Thank you. Sounds wonderful. And Bianca, what book are you recommending tonight?
Thing lighthearted and fun, really a rompy read, because that's the book I've written, so that's what I was seeking out. So it's Payback's a Witch by Lana Harper. There's actually already the follow-on from that, From Bad to Cursed. Talk about good titles, right?
Yeah.
What I love about this is that it's an LGBTQ plus queer rom-com. There's these amazing magical elements in it. It's a very enchanted story. It's a magical town. And if you love magical games or things like, the Quidditch World Cup or things like, the House Cup in Harry Potter, this has got an amazing magical game that plays out with really interesting rules. And it's just jam-packed full of fun. And it's just a feel-good, lovely, escapist read.
That's always in order, isn't it? The escapist part, especially. Chris, what are you recommending tonight?
So my recommendation is Natalie Zena Walshott's Hench. And I just, first of all, I just adore this book. I love big, ambitious swings when it comes to novels. And this is as ambitious as it comes. But usually ambitious novels can be a slog. This one is riotously funny. It's incredibly passionately written. So it's at once a biting satire of sort of late stage capitalism and hustle culture in the gig economy, and a send up of the tired tropes of superhero stories, and kind of a heartwarming story about finding yourself after a traumatic injury. But the premise is this: it's about a young woman who is a freelance hench. She picks up gig work for various supervillains in a world in which superheroes are common, and she gets very, very excited because she gets to be in the background during what turns out to be a ransom demand from the low-level supervillain that she works for. And then an A-list superhero named Super Collider comes swooping in to save this child that's been kidnapped. But when he does so, he actually kills a number of her fellow henches and badly shatters her leg. And so she has to come back from this traumatic injury. And in doing so, she becomes obsessed with the idea that these so-called superheroes seem to do a lot more damage than good. Mm-hmm. And puts the power, I like this as a science nerd because I am a former scientist, puts the power of the spreadsheet to good use to figure out just how many people hours and life hours they have robbed the world of. And in so doing, she sort of rises through the ranks of villains to become a bit of a supervillain herself, but in a very sympathetic way. And it's riotously funny. It's very sharp. It's unabashedly queer. And one of the other things I love about it, I love a great action sequence, but my eyes glaze over when I get to a boring action sequence. Oftentimes, superhero stories are rife with boring action sequences. The back third of every Marvel movie, no matter how good the first 2/3 are, is a bunch of different colored energy beams shooting across the screen. It's like watching a kid smash their toys together. In her case, all of her action sequences are beautifully choreographed. They're inventive. They inform character. They forward the plot. They surprise. So it's just a joy to read from start to finish, and I can't recommend it highly enough.